The street was cold. Wind howled between the tall metal buildings of the lower district. Rain had stopped an hour ago, but water still dripped from broken signs and rooftops. She sat there, still, silent. A small alien girl, curled up against a wall near a trash bin. Her skin was pale blue, lips cracked. Her hands shook badly, holding the thin cloth around her body. Her feet were bare, dirty, and bleeding. People walked past her, humans, aliens, machines, but no one stopped. Some looked at her with pity, some with disgust. Most didn't look at all. She coughed once. It was weak, dry. She tried to stand but fell again. Her body had no strength left. Across the street, a man named Jalen watched her. A human man. His clothes were worn, and his boots had holes. His face was rough from long days working machines. He wasn't rich, in fact, he only had 1 credit left, just enough to buy a meal for himself. But he didn't move toward the food shop. His eyes stayed on the girl. She tried to hide her face when he walked closer. She thought he might hit her. Or worse, that's what others had done before. But Jalen didn't yell. He didn't laugh. He knelt down slowly and held out his coat. "Hey," he said softly. "You cold?" The girl blinked. Her eyes were wide and glowing softly in the dark. "She didn't," answered. Jalen gently placed his coat over her shoulders. She flinched but didn't pull away. "You're shaking," he said. "You'll freeze out here." The girl looked at the coat. She touched it like she had never felt something warm before. She opened her mouth but no words came. Just another cough. "Can you walk?" he asked. She nodded weakly, tried to stand. Again. Her legs gave out. Without thinking, Jalen caught her. She was light, too light. She felt like carrying broken glass. The moment surprised her. Her eyes filled with tears and she whispered, "Why? Why are you touching me kindly?" Jalen didn't answer. He just held her tighter. His room wasn't much, just 4 walls, a bed, and 1 broken heater. But it was dry. Jalen laid her gently on the bed. She didn't let go of his coat. He found a blanket and wrapped it around her. Then he sat beside her, unsure what to do next. "I'm Jalen," he said. "Can you tell me your name?" She stared at him. Her lips moved, but nothing came. Then she shook her head slowly. "No." He nodded. "That's okay. You can tell me later." She looked around the room. Her eyes stopped at the cracked window, the single light above. Then back to him. I'm not for sale," she said suddenly, her voice small. "I know," he replied. "I didn't buy you." Her lips trembled. "Others did." Jalen's jaw tightened. He didn't ask more. He stood up and walked to the small cabinet, pulled out a packet of dried food, his last one. He added water and brought it to her. "Eat this," he said. She stared at it like it was a dream. "You're giving me food?" Jalen smiled a little. "Yeah, that's what people do, right?" She slowly took the cup with shaking hands. 1 drop spilled, then 2. But she kept holding it, and ate slowly, like every bite was sacred. After a while, her body stopped shaking. She leaned back and looked at him again. Her eyes were still unsure, still afraid. "I don't know how to repay you," she whispered. "You don't need to," Jalen said. "Just get better." She blinked again, confused. He walked over to the heater and hit it twice. A soft hum began, just enough warmth. Then he turned back to her. "You should rest now. You're safe here." She didn't answer, but her head slowly sank into the pillow. Her eyes closed. Her fingers still held onto the edge of his coat. Jalen sat down beside the bed. He watched her breathe. Outside, the wind still blew hard, but in that small, broken room it was quiet. The night was long and cold. Jalen sat on the floor next to the bed. The alien girl was still asleep, her body wrapped in his old coat and 1 thin blanket. She barely moved, except for a small breath, now and then, like her body had forgotten how to rest. There was no sound in the room, just the soft hum of the broken heater, trying its best to fight the chill. The warmth it gave was little, but it was better than the street. Jalen didn't sleep. He watched her, wondering who she was. Where had she come from? How had she ended up half dead on the ground, treated like trash? He looked at the half-empty food cup on the table. She hadn't finished it, but she had eaten more than he expected. Her body must have been starving for days. Suddenly, she shifted. Jalen stood quickly. She sat up, gasping, her eyes wild. She looked around the room in fear, like she'd woken up in a trap. "Hey," he said gently, raising his hands. "You're safe. No one will hurt you here." She blinked. Her breath slowed. Then she clutched the blanket tightly, pulling it up to her chin. "Where am I?" she asked. Her voice was soft but clearer now. "My room," Jalen said. "Lower. Sector Zone 9. Nothing fancy, but it's dry." She looked down at herself. "You brought me here?" He nodded. "Why?" Jalen rubbed the back of his neck. "Because you were dying out there, and I couldn't just walk away." She frowned. "Most do." "I'm not most." She stared at him for a long time. Then, slowly, she said, "I thought maybe you wanted something." Jalen's eyes narrowed. "I didn't help you to take anything. But I'm an alien," she whispered, "and I don't belong here. Some think aliens like me are only for trade or service." Jalen sat on the edge of the bed, but not too close. He looked her straight in the eyes and said, "You're not a thing, you're a person. You deserve to be warm, fed, safe." She looked away quickly, but not before he saw the tears forming. "I don't even have a name," she said. Jalen paused. He leaned back a little and said, "Then maybe it's time someone gave you one." She looked at him, surprised. He thought, for a moment. "How about Sarah?" "Sarah?" she repeated. "It means light in an old Earth language. And that's what you are now. A small light, still burning." She touched her chest slowly. "Sarah," she whispered again. And for the first time she smiled, just a little. Hours passed. Jalen found some clean water and helped her wash her hands and face. He even gave her an old shirt to wear. It hung loose on her small frame, but she seemed to like it. As the heater faded, the cold returned. "I don't have much heat," Jalen said, "and only one blanket." "I'm used to the cold," she replied, but her body still shivered. After a pause, he spoke again. "We can share the bed, not for anything else, just for warmth. I'll stay on my side, promise." She hesitated, then slowly nodded. "Okay." That night, under the weak light bulb, they lay side by side, not touching, not speaking, but Jalen noticed her breathing start to calm. Then he heard her whisper something. "What did you say?" he asked softly. "I said, thank you," she replied. Jalen turned his head toward her. She continued, "You're the first person who didn't look at me like I was filth." He said nothing, just smiled in the dark. But after a moment, he whispered back, "You're safe now, Sarah. I'll protect you, even if I've got nothing left." She didn't reply, but her small hand reached out from under the blanket and gently touched his arm. That was enough. Morning light touched the cracked window. Faint sunlight slid across the bed where Sarah lay, curled under the old blanket. Her pale blue skin looked warmer now, her face less hollow. Jalen had already been up for hours. He was trying to fix a broken comm device on the table. His fingers moved slow, partly from the cold, partly from watching her sleep. For the first time in weeks, the room didn't feel empty. Sarah opened her eyes. She blinked at the light, confused at first. Then she saw Jalen, sitting near the table. "You're still here," she said softly. He looked over and smiled. "Where else would I be?" She sat up slowly, her body still sore, but there was strength in her arms now. I had a dream, she whispered. I saw a field, with suns overhead. I was running. I was laughing. He raised an eyebrow. That sounds peaceful. I think I was someone else in that dream, someone with a name. She looked down at her hands. But I don't remember it. Jalen paused. Maybe your past name is lost, he said. But maybe that's a good thing. Why? She asked. Because now you can choose who you want to be. She didn't answer, but her eyes stayed on him. Later that day, Jalen took her outside, not far, just to the alley behind the building. The city was always gray here, but this spot had a small open sky. Sarah looked up. Her eyes followed a bird passing by. Have you ever flown? She asked suddenly. Jalen laughed. Humans don't fly, Sarah. We fall a lot. She grinned. Then maybe I was born to fly. He looked at her, this thin, quiet girl who had nearly died 2 nights ago. Now talking about flight. Maybe she was stronger than she looked. They sat on an old crate. Jalen handed her a broken food pack and said, We'll find more soon. Sarah turned the packet in her hands. You give me food, clothes, a name, but I still don't know who I was. You know who you are now, he replied. That matters more. Suddenly, a voice called from the building across the alley. Hey, human. It was an older alien male, skin green and scaled. You, harboring someone again. We saw a girl go in. Jalen stood quickly. She's none of your business, Rug. The alien sneered. Illegal ones belong to the market. You know that. Jalen's fists clenched. She's not for sale. Sarah stood too, afraid, her voice low. They know I'm here? Jalen guided her back inside. Don't worry. Let them talk. You're safe with me. But inside he knew. The truth. In this city, nothing stayed secret for long. That night, Sarah sat near the heater. The broken unit buzzed, throwing out faint heat. Jalen was writing something on a data pad. Notes, codes, maybe job listings. Sarah broke the silence. You think I was ever loved before? Jalen looked up. What do you mean? Before I ended up on the streets, before I lost everything. Do you think someone cared for me once? He didn't know how to answer. Instead, he walked over and sat beside her. Maybe someone did. Maybe they couldn't protect you. But I'm here now. She looked into his eyes. And if I remember who I was, what if I was someone bad? He smiled gently. Then we'll change that. She leaned her head against his shoulder. You say my name like it matters. It does, he said. You matter. She closed her eyes, and that night, for the first time in a long time, she didn't dream of hunger or pain. She dreamed of stars and flying. The days passed quietly. Jalen kept his promise. He brought small food packs when he could, taught Sarah how to boil water, showed her how to read basic human signs. She learned fast, too fast for someone forgotten. There was something in her, sharp, silent, watching. But even as she smiled more, she never stepped too far outside the room. That morning, Jalen left early to find work. Sarah stayed behind, sweeping the floor with a broken broom. She was humming, softly. Then came the sound. Metal boots. Heavy steps. She froze. A shadow moved outside the window. Before she could hide, the door slammed open. 2 city guards, fully armored, stepped in with scanners and weapons drawn. Subject located. Non-registered alien female. Code 7. Sarah backed up. Don't move, barked one of the guards. Hands visible. Now. I'm not hurting. Anyone? She tried to explain, but they didn't care. One grabbed her by the arm, the other pulled out a thick metal collar. No record, no sponsor. She's unclaimed trash, one muttered. They clicked the collar around her neck. It glowed, red and beeped. Sarah screamed, not from pain but from fear. Wait, please. I didn't do anything. They dragged her out the door. Her hands scratched the floor. She kicked, begged, but the guards were silent. Jalen returned minutes later. The room was a mess. The blanket thrown, the heater broken, the data pad blinking with a warning. Unauthorized entry detected. His heart dropped. He ran. At the local station, cold lights buzzed above metal benches. Jalen stepped inside, chest pounding. Behind the front desk sat a bored alien officer. "Can I help you?" "I'm here about a girl," Jalen said quickly. "Young, blue skin, pale eyes. Name's Sarah." The officer raised an eyebrow. "You mean the illegal stray we caught this morning?" "She's not a stray, she's under my care. Not in the system, she isn't." He tapped a screen. "No record, no ID, no rights." Jalen leaned forward. "Where is she?" "Auction. Processing. Sector 3. Jalen's fists tightened. Auction. Sector 3 was darker than the rest, hidden behind walls, past checkpoints and guards. Here, people weren't treated like people. They were items. Sarah sat in a holding cage. Her wrists were locked. Her head rested on her knees. Her collar blinked softly. The other cages were full. Young aliens, quiet or crying. None spoke. A man passed by her cage wearing black robes. He looked down at her and smiled. Clean. Quiet. Exotic. She'll sell high. Sarah didn't respond. Her eyes were blank, but inside her chest her heart beat hard. She wasn't afraid of being sold. She was afraid Jalen wouldn't come. At the entrance, Jalen argued with the guards. "She's mine," he shouted. "Got proof?" One of them laughed. "She's not property. She's a person." "That's not how this works." They pushed him back, but he didn't leave. He looked through the fence and caught a glimpse of her face. Their eyes met. Sarah stood up slowly in her cage, and Jalen saw it. Not fear, not sadness, but fire. Darkness filled the auction hall. No windows, no clocks. Only blinking lights above the cages, each one marked with a number and price tag. Sarah sat behind metal bars, wrapped in silence. Her collar still blinked red. Her knees pulled to her chest. Her eyes, however, didn't look afraid anymore. They looked ready. She didn't know how, but she knew. He was coming. Outside, Jalen crouched behind a maintenance truck, watching the side gate. Security was tight. 4 guards, 2 scanners. ID chips required. He didn't have access, but he had something better. A stolen pass card. He had taken it from a drunk officer 2 nights ago, hoping he'd never need it. Now it was his only way in. He took a breath, then moved fast, through the shadows past the first checkpoint, holding his breath until the scanner flashed green. He was in. Inside, wealthy buyers, humans, aliens, nobles, sat in private booths, sipping sweet drinks as holograms of products floated before them. Lot number 1127, the auctioneer called. Female, rare genetics, submissive, no history. Bidding starts at 10 credits, the crowd murmured. Sarah's cage rolled forward. Spotlight hit her face. She blinked, then looked down, just like she had practiced in the mirror. "Look how soft she is," a noble woman said. "Perfect for palace service. I say we train her for obedience work." Another laughed. Sarah said nothing. She was buying time. Jalen reached the back room, where the auction techs managed the cages. He spotted a map glowing on the wall, cage numbers and tracks. 27. That was hers. He grabbed a cloak from a rack and threw it over himself. He walked fast, pretending to belong, eyes locked on the screen. A voice stopped him. "Hey, you, what are you doing here?" Jalen didn't reply. He turned and punched the man hard. The guard dropped. Jalen grabbed his ID tag and rushed to the access door. Back in the auction pit, the bidding had begun. 20 credits. 35. 42 credits. Sarah kept her eyes low, but her hands were working slowly, pressing her wrist against the cage edge, triggering a tiny click from the lock bolt. The guards didn't notice. They never thought she'd fight. Suddenly, a new bidder stepped forward. He wore a dark robe and a mask. No one recognized him. He raised his hand. 60 credits. The crowd went quiet. That voice. Sarah's heart jumped. She knew it. The auctioneer smiled wide. 60 credits. Going once? 80 credits. A new voice boomed from the upper booth. A tall alien noble stood wrapped in red. His skin was golden and his eyes sharp. He stared directly at Sarah. I've been watching her for weeks. She's mine. Jalen's jaw clenched under the mask. This was worse than he thought. 80 credits going once, going twice. Sarah gripped the cage lock one more time. It clicked. The door popped open just an inch. Then slam. Jalen threw off his mask, jumped into the auction pit, and pulled Sarah out of the cage. She's not for sale, he shouted. Gasps echoed. Alarms blared. Guards ran forward. Sarah didn't hesitate. She grabbed a loose chain and swung it hard, knocking one guard flat. Jalen shoved another aside. Together they ran, through the chaos, past broken booths and shocked. Buyers, seal the doors, someone yelled. Too late. They burst into the service tunnel, gasping. Jalen pulled the collar from her neck with a broken tool. It fell to the ground, blinking. Are you hurt? He asked. No, she said, chest rising and falling fast. But you came. He looked at her and smiled. I told you. I'd protect you, even if it kills me. Sarah took his hand. We're not done yet, she whispered. Let's run. And they disappeared into the shadows. The city was alive with alarms. Red lights blinked across the sky towers. Patrol drones circled low. Every screen on the streets showed one message. Human male and unidentified alien female escaped from slave auction. Dangerous. Report immediately. But they were already gone. Jalen and Sarah ran through the old service tunnels, dark, dripping with steam. Their feet echoed off metal walls. They didn't speak. They didn't need to. Breath after breath, step after step, they moved together. Behind them, they heard the mechanical howl of tracking hounds. They're close, Sarah said, glancing back. Jalen nodded. Just a little farther. His hand squeezed hers tighter. She didn't let go. They reached an old elevator shaft. Jalen pried open the hatch. Down, he said. It's deep, Sarah whispered, staring into the darkness. He tied a rope around a pipe. Still safer than going back. Sarah hesitated, then climbed in first. Jalen followed, but just before he reached the bottom, a laser blast hit the wall above. Heat burned his shoulder. Found them, a guard yelled. Jalen dropped fast, landing hard beside Sarah. She gasped at the blood on his shirt. You're hurt. No time, he said, grabbing her hand again. Let's move. They found shelter in an old junkyard, piles of broken machines and dead starship parts. The city had forgotten this place. Jalen collapsed under a wing-shaped wreck, breathing hard. Sarah tore part of her sleeve and pressed it against his wound. You should have left me, she said softly. I couldn't, he replied, eyes shut. She looked at his face, dirty, bruised, bleeding. But still, warm, still Jalen. I'm not worth your life, she whispered. You're wrong, he said. You're the first thing in this galaxy that ever felt worth saving. Tears welled in her eyes, but peace didn't last. A metal thud echoed, then another. Sarah peered through the wreckage. Jalen. He opened his eyes. The golden-skinned noble from the auction stood outside. His armor shimmered under the moonlight. 10 soldiers behind him. You ran well, the noble said, but everything has a price, and I've already paid yours. Jalen pushed himself up, groaning. She's not yours, he growled. She was bought, the noble replied coldly. You had no right to take her. Sarah stood between them. Then come take me. The noble smirked. Gladly. He raised his hand. The soldiers stepped forward, but they didn't expect her to fight. Sarah charged first, fast, faster than any of them thought possible. She jumped, spun, and kicked the lead soldier down. Another swung his stun rod. She ducked, and grabbed it, shocking him instead. Jalen stood behind her, still bleeding, but he picked up a rusted pipe and joined in. 2 against 10. but they fought like fire and steel. Sarah moved with wild speed. Her body remembered something, maybe from the past she had forgotten. Jalen fought with heart. He didn't think. He just kept her safe. In the middle of chaos, the noble drew a sleek weapon and aimed it at Jalen. Sarah saw it. "No," she screamed. She leapt between them. The shot fired. It hit her shoulder. She dropped to the ground. "Sarah!" Jalen yelled. He rushed to her side. Blood leaked down her arm, but her eyes were open. "I'm okay," she whispered, teeth clenched. "Don't stop." Jalen stood again, rage burning in his chest. He turned to the noble and charged. The noble fired again. Missed. Jalen slammed into him, knocked him to the ground. The gun flew from his hand. "I told you," Jalen said through gritted teeth. "She's not for sale." And he hit him again. And again. Until the noble didn't move. The rest of the soldiers backed away. None dared touch the girl now. Later, Jalen carried Sarah through the junkyard toward the hidden shelter deep underground. Her head rested on his shoulder. "You're bleeding too much," she mumbled. "So are you," he smiled weakly. "I didn't know I could fight like that," she said, half laughing. "Maybe your old life wasn't so helpless after all." She closed her eyes, then whispered, "You didn't let them take me." He looked down at her and replied, "They'd have to kill me first." Deep underground, far from the city lights, far from slave auctions and screaming alarms, silence finally returned. In a hidden storage room once used for spare ship parts, Jalen sat with his back against a metal wall, his arms wrapped gently around Sarah, who rested quietly in his lap. She was hurt. So was he. But they were alive. They had each other. The light above flickered weakly. It barely lit the space, but enough to show her peaceful face. Her blue skin now, marked with dried blood and bruises, yet something was different. She didn't look like a slave. She looked, free. Jalen slowly adjusted the torn blanket over her shoulders. She stirred for a moment, then curled closer to his chest. "I'm sorry," she whispered, eyes still shut. "For what?" he asked softly. "For getting caught. For pulling you into this. For being weak." He shook his head. "You were never weak," he said. "You were just alone." Sarah opened her eyes a little. They glowed faintly like stars in the dark. "You think they'll come again?" Jalen sighed. "They'll always come for people they think are worth money. But we're not going back. Not ever." She looked up at him. "You don't even know who I was. What if I'm dangerous?" He smiled. "You are dangerous. Did you see what you did back there? You threw 3 grown soldiers like scrap." A tiny laugh escaped her lips. "I did, didn't I?" "You were amazing," he said. Then he paused. "And you were mine to protect." That night they shared the warmth of silence. No noise from engines, no boots thudding nearby. Just their breathing. Sarah shifted again and whispered, "You gave me more than food, more than your coat." "You gave me something too," Jalen replied. She raised her head. "What?" "Something I forgot I needed." "Which is?" He looked at her and said, "A reason." Sarah lay her head back down on his chest. "I used to be afraid of being touched," she whispered. "But now, I feel safe when you hold me." Jalen's voice was low. "That's all I ever wanted for you." She smiled softly. Outside, the wind howled above the surface. The city never stopped moving. But here, in this broken little hiding place, time stood still. Morning didn't bring sunlight, but it brought peace. Jalen woke up to the sound of her steady breathing. She was still asleep, wrapped in his coat, her face calm for the first time since he found her. She looked like a girl who finally believed she belonged somewhere. He brushed a strand of hair from her forehead, and he whispered, "You're safe now, Sarah. You'll never be alone again." Later they sat together, quietly planning. New names, new places, a way off-world, but most of all, a new life, not as owner and property, not as savior and saved, but as something better, as family. Before they left the underground shelter, Sarah paused, near the broken mirror. She looked at her reflection. For a long time, she said nothing. Then she whispered to herself, "They sold me like I was nothing, but I was always someone." And she turned to Jalen, took his hand, and walked into freedom.